team members are there, that is good. And then what I generally do after any Zoom that we do, and we will be doing joint Zooms with the 801 online class, which is the 910 class. I had them for 3 straight quarters, and I wanted to give them a break. So we have another instructor, and she'll be interacting with us also. So we're going to do joint Zooms. And they will all be recorded. If you do miss a Zoom, I will send out my YouTube link. I have a YouTube page, and everything's there, so you can catch up with whatever you miss, or any of the information that's there. So basically tonight, I just want to give you a quick overview of this course. It's going to be a unique, different type of course. You don't have a lot of research or writing papers in this course. This is a play course because it's designed to get you to truly experience what creative strategies are all about, what creative leadership is about, and you're going to be building a new model in terms of what learning environments in the future will be, utilizing design thinking and also the creative problem-solving approach in the Puccio book. So that's basically what you're going to be doing. Most of your presentations will be done through some form of social media of your choice, the team's choice. You totally work as a team, except for that first little activity you have to do that I want by the 30th is just a quick, one-pager, maybe 2 at the most, on what you believe creativity is. So that serves as a baseline for your own thinking, at this particular point. So what we're going to be doing now for 10 weeks, and you'll be working in your teams, and I did post the teams up in the material about 20, 25 minutes ago. Now, again, I put these teams together based on some of the material you sent me. I have no idea how you guys function. I did not ask Ed Bureau for any feedback into that. So serendipitously, I put them together. If you have real serious problems with the team that you're in, let me know in an email. And but otherwise, that will be your working team. 2 of the teams have 5 members, and 1 team has 4 members. But that, the differences will not matter that much in terms of what you're going to be doing. So basically, the essential question then that you're going to be exploring in relationship to the course is basically this. Really, we're going to look at the present structure of what we call schools from pre-K all the way up into adult learning. And when I'm talking about adult learning, if you work in a non-educational institution, and I think a couple of you do that, the question then is, how do you do continuous learning, staff development, training with any type of organization? But more importantly, what we're trying to focus on is really how do we create a sustainable world for our kids, and utilizing education as the major focal point of that. So that's the question that your teams are going to be working from, really beginning to explore that concept. And in order to do that, what you're going to be drawing upon then basically is a lot of the materials that you're going to find in the readings. So the 4 books that you have reading for is Creative Leadership, the Puccio book. That's really the real text, if you want to name one as a textbook, because what that does is, and he's one of the leading thinkers about this idea of creativity and leadership, of how do you begin to nurture creativity within an organization by utilizing your own leadership abilities, and then going back to 845, Theory U, thinking about the source of your leadership, where it's coming from, and drawing upon that. The second book comes from Tom Kelly's book on, on the personas. This is kind of a real easy read for you. What I want you to do is take a look at these. The Kelly brothers are the founders of both the D-School and IDEO. IDEO is one of the leading design firms in the world. I know David Kelly was very good friends with Steve Jobs. Kelly was the one who designed the mouse for him. He designed a lot of the concepts that you saw in Apple related to when Steve Jobs was in charge of Apple. And so this is kind of an interesting book because, again, it's self-analytical, but from all of their work in this thing called innovation and creativity, they basically, have defined about what they call 10 phases of innovation. So what you're going to do is you're going to go through that and kind of identify who you are, which ones seem to more or less relate to you, and then those that maybe, they're not your strengths, they are your weaknesses. And then what I want you to do is to basically share that information with your teams so you can begin to see what the teams are about. And then the one by Tim Brown, who is head of IDEO, basically what this deals with is takes you into a deeper dive into what this concept of design thinking is. It has become a major buzzword right now in organizations. You'll see it in schools, especially with STEM and STEAM. In terms of teaching kids how to become innovative and creative. Well, design thinking is I guess the major area of what people are using. So this is going to help you, to think about this as your team is going through this. And then finally, the last one is, and this is kind of a unique book, it's Dan Pink's book, Drive. Because what this really begins to look at is this concept of extrinsic rewards and what motivation is all about. And really, Pink, through his observations and his research into this concept of motivation, really is going to raise some interesting issues for you when you begin to think about how do you nurture the development in every single individual within your learning environment around motivation. Now, the 10 phases, the design, Change by Design, and Drive, these are popular books. They're books that are fairly easy reads for you. They give you a lot of information, and the creative leadership, as I said to you, is probably the closest thing to a textbook. But there again, it integrates quite well with the other three, and you'll see that as we go through the course, and as I lay out every Sunday morning, you'll get a voice announcement from me, kind of integrating across materials as you move into each week and the activities for the week. So, any questions about the books? Fairly straightforward. So here's basically your assignments. Again, this week, vision yourself as a creative leader. That's pretty straightforward. Just remember, that is to kind of get you to put down some concept of what you believe leadership and creativity is all about. So what I ask you to one extent is to look at, what is creativity for you, and are you creative? So that's what I want you to look at, because then we'll talk about that in week 10 again, come back to it and see if you've had any shifts in your thinking about that concept. The second one then is that self-analysis that's due on the 14th, April 19th, excuse me. And there, I want you to put together, and you can do it paper, social media, any way you want to present this information. It's up to you how you want to do it. People use Prezis, they use VoiceThread, they do videos and upload them to YouTube. So whatever you want to do is based on what the criteria is in the syllabus, I want you to identify how you see yourself in terms of those personas, and both from a weakness point of view or from a strength point of view. Then I'm having you do a very short, and what I'm going to say is synthesis of leadership on creativity. There's a whole mess of research articles you will see in the resource section there. What I want you to begin to really think about is what you really believe is the emerging, areas around creativity, particularly coming out of neurosciences in particular, and what you see the impact on work. Now, I'm not sure, when you had 802, did you look at any of the work around the second machine age? Do you remember? Anybody? You didn't have the second machine age to read in 802? That was a technology course?
No, that doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, well, what I'll do is I'm going to put, what I want you to do is to help you to think about this, and this is not in the first week's work. If you go out to YouTube, you will see and type in "humans need not apply." I'd like you to watch that video. It runs 15 minutes. It'd be kind of interesting as part of your team's thinking about what the world's going to be like in the future, particularly for our kids, and how we design educational learning environments for them, given the fact that automation is in full swing right now. So humans need not apply. I would strongly recommend you to watch that because it will be good information for your thinking. So we'll talk more about this, that synthesis of the literature, but again, you can start doing that at any time after the 4th week, and then you can start posting however you do it, anywhere at the beginning week 7 and by the end of week 9. And then the last thing is, and this is the major component, will be your design thinking project, and hopefully you got the overview of the handbook that shows you what you're going to be doing over the next 10 weeks, some of the types of questions you're going to do, and I'll cover a little bit of that tonight for what you need to do this week. So that's basically your assignments. As I said to you, I'm not going to push a lot of writing because you'll be hit with a lot of writing, I believe, in your other course, and I want you to have more time to process concepts around creativity, innovation, and leadership, and I want you to do it collectively within your groups. To me, that conversation, so I want you to definitely go down the U, basically, as you think about what your challenge is going to be in order to create these learning spaces for the future. So that's the assignments. Any questions, comments? Pretty straightforward. Okay, hearing none at this particular point. So here's the underlying structure then of the course. So when you look at that handout that I gave you, that book, so to speak, or the handbook, you will notice on that front page is you're going to be drawing from, this is the material that came out of 800. So again, using the iceberg model as that approach. And then on top of that, then you superimpose the concepts that you learned in Theory U. And so what we're looking at here, particularly as you go down the U, seeing and sensing and letting go our traditional points of what learning is about based upon this analysis you're going to be doing over the next 2 weeks, and then letting come possibilities based on what the team is looking at in terms of creating a prototype for for a new type of learning environment. And then on top of that, then we'll be utilizing then the process of design thinking, where you'll define your challenge, you'll develop empathy for the ideas, you'll ideate, you'll prototype, and you'll test it. So that's a visual so that you get a sense of what this process looks like over the 10 weeks. But you're drawing from 800, 802, and also 845. So this hopefully will help you to visualize the interconnectedness of what's happening in this course. So this then serves as the conceptual framework. And then what happens is, really now the purpose then of this course is to get you to really experience divergent and convergent thinking. But I'm going to really push you into the divergent environment, because to me, that's one that most of us, unless you are a professional artist or a professional musician, probably, you don't live in that divergent environment. Most of our organizations are, it sounds like microwave is beeping away there. So most of us really work in convergent organizations, where you start with A, you go to B, you go to C to get to D. Whereas divergent, it's not that way. It's very nonlinear. So you're going to explore that, but within this context of global transitional change, particularly if when you think back about Otto Scharmer's work, and if you experience the three divides he talks about, self with nature, self with others, and self with self, this then becomes a very important component to thinking about how we organize information for people to continually learn in this great transition that's taking place globally. So that's one of the purposes. And then the second one really is to get you to get into deeper assumptions about creativity. So you're doing this little exercise in the beginning to kind of serve as your baseline about what you think about yourself as related to creativity, but looking at what creativity, what innovation is, but more importantly is how does it relate to you as a leader, and how will you utilize that in your leadership development and getting deeper into understanding the source of your leadership and development. And then finally is really to develop the skill sets by using a design studio to really look at how you would create 21st century schools or 21st century learning environments at all ages. So that's the basic purpose of this course, what you're going to be going through over the 10 weeks. So any comments about the three purposes? I always think of the Ferris Bueller movie, if you remember that movie. Ben Stein's the teacher. Anyone? 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 Okay, I'll answer my question. So that's the purposes, and again, just setting a context for you, so you'll be able to think about this and begin to process what's going to happen within your teams. So your design team. So what you're going to do then after 10 weeks within that team that I have you there is really this question: how might we redesign our schools or other learning environments in order to meet our students' needs for the world of the 21st century? Pretty straightforward. Again, some of you are in K-12, some of you have university experience, and some of you are outside of the educational environment. That's good. So again, we're looking at how do we learn in the future, and particularly if you think about the things that you learned in 802 related to what technology is doing in relationship to learning, and particularly now with the emergence of virtual reality is becoming a very, very powerful learning tool. What is that going to mean to the design of schools in the future? So the purpose then, really through these collaborative teams, is to experience the process of design thinking. So again, we only have 10 weeks to do that. But again, I want you to at least get a sense of what this is, and then from an individual point of view, I'm hoping that you'll be able to begin to see the possibilities of using this within your own work environments. And hopefully, we can talk about this, and I'm hoping within your teams, you'll raise those types of questions that might generate, well, okay, how do we deal with this? How do we get this started? And that's where the Puccio book really comes into play with some very good material. And then if you think about what Puccio is talking about, then going back to Sengi's book, Schools That Learn, or even the Russell Lakoff's book, Learning on the Right Side Up, there's a lot of tools in there that will help to enhance your ability to think about creating innovative processes within your work environments. So basically then, when you begin to look at this, and you have that flow chart I've given you, I think on the second page of my little handout, not second page, but the third page of that handout. So basically, what you're going to be doing for the first 3 weeks is that there is a lot of stuff, if you notice on the buttons on the side of your Blackboard Learn, the Wall Street Journal, the Sachs material, a lot of videos that obviously I'm giving you. I want your team to begin to look at, outside of the realm of education, what's going on in the world, and what type of world is emerging that our kids are going to be living in, or we have to function in order to create a sustainable future. Particularly now, as you look at the conflicts, look at what happened in Brussels, take a look at what's going on in China, India, Pakistan, all of those areas. What's the relevancy of that towards, particularly what Otto Scharmer talked about in relationship to those 3 divides? So if your team begins to explore those and look at that data, and particularly from the Wall Street Journal materials that I have there, even though they're from last year, Wall Street Journal does some interesting things where they ask experts within any given field what's going to happen down the road. So you'll see a lot of short PDFs that your team can draw from. So then what will happen is, over these 3 weeks, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be scanning, and then your team's going to begin to think about, all right, what's the challenge we want to go after? And you're going to identify what that challenge is. And if you follow what's in the handbook, and I'll be leading you through this process, obviously, you will name what your challenge is, and then you're going to start working on it. And then that last one, Voices from the Field, what I want you to do is, from your team, I want you to go in your own work environments or your own, social environments and ask people, hey, if we were to do this, what do you think about this? So I want you to get some data from the field about what people think about your challenge and what you think might be necessary, to do that. So that's the first 3 weeks. And as it says there, be very aware of the voice of judgment, the voice of cynicism, and the voice of fear. And again, on the other side, what you're looking at is you're looking at events, you're looking at patterns and trends with the behaviors, and you're looking at mental models and assumptions that are driving what you're looking at, in the world, in those articles, and your own thinking. Okay, so that's the first 3 weeks. That's what you're doing. You're going down the U as you go through this in terms of your team. And again, I'm hitting you with a lot of stuff right now. As you process this, just email me or give me a call if you need further explanation. Because again, you're getting hit with a lot of stuff right now. It'll take a little time to process it. Plus, I'll also have this up again on the YouTube. So if you want to, put yourself through it again, you can listen to parts of it. So that's the first 3 weeks. Then what happens then in week 4, now you're really beginning to say, okay, here's what we're talking about. This is what our challenge is going to be. And now you're going to begin to start brainstorming ways to deal with that challenge. So that's what you're going to be doing in week 4. So again, you're going to start up the U. So you're letting go of the old assumptions, the old concepts of what learning is right now, and you're going to let come the concepts of possibilities based upon those scans that you're doing, and your team's going to try to crystallize around a vision or a process that you want to go forward. So that's in week 4. Now remember, we're going to be having Zooms, and we'll be talking about this, so you're not out there on your own as you're playing around with this. So weeks 5 and 6, you're going to prototype. So what you're going to do is you're going to come up with different designs. You're going to try to play around with these ideas. Your team's going to try to make this as tangible as possible in a virtual environment. I will give you a lot of materials from past cohorts so you'll have an idea what this is. And then in week 6, what your teams are going to do, we'll probably do this over 2 nights, because you're going to present your prototype, you're going to get feedback, and then that feedback will help you to move forward. But what's going to happen is you're going to get feedback from the other class, and you're also going to see what they're doing to give them feedback. So that's going to happen in week 5 and 6 as we go through this process. Then what happens now is really teams are working on designing. So you're going to take the information, the feedback you've gotten, and now what you're going to start doing is creating the physical space, the information flow, the system of work that you're going to see there, the type of leadership skills that are going to be necessary to get this started and to make it sustainable, and basically what those implementation strategies are. Again, you will be getting a lot of feedback from me in terms of what you need to do and how to do that. And then finally, weeks 9 and 10, by then you should be blown out totally. So there you're going to tell your story. You will do a presentation of your choice. Most people have a tendency to do it in VoiceThread. Some people do Prezi with voiceover. So that's what will happen. So over weeks 9 and 10, you will put that out there for people to see. And then what will happen is those that become really interesting, I do have a tendency to upload these to Otto Scharmer's Presencing Institute website so people from around the world can take a look at what you guys designed, maybe get some feedback. So that's what this is about over the next 10 weeks. So let me ask again, any questions or thoughts related to this? Any operational stuff you need to know? So again, I'm reiterating that. So you're going to look at it from a systems point of view, and then you're going to be looking at, okay, well, how do we design the physical space? How do we begin to look at how people work on a daily basis? Anybody within that learning environment, what's going to go on? And then what you're really doing is this week is starting to draw from all that material that we have on those side buttons. The Wall Street Journal, I got a lot of stuff from Jeffrey Sachs there. Obviously, you went through, that should be 8:45. It used to be 6:25. Now it's 8:45. And then the video sources that I have in there for you, and I already mentioned that new one, Humans Need Not Apply. So,
yeah, John, I had a quick question.
Please do it.
So, yeah, my question was, I don't work in an academic setting. I work in a health system. So would that just mean in our team's project, just bringing in that voice into our presentation?
Yep, I would definitely say that would be true. And the other question I would ask is, how would your environment interact in a new type of learning environment that would create intergenerational learning with kids in, whether it be a college environment or a K-12 environment? See where I'm going with that?
Yeah, and we actually do work. We do have programs where we bring in high school students, we bring in college students, we bring in volunteers. We have a medical school affiliation.
Yep.
a bunch of different things to get that generational aspect.
Yep. So the question is, well, how can you deal with that? Can you expand it? You know, how does it integrate into whatever your team's going to do?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? I'm going to stop the share. So go back here. So anything else? Questions for the group?
So Dr. G, you had a couple slides ago, you were talking about working within a design studio
Yeah.
for our teams. Is that I'm assuming that's not a specific software.
No. Design Studio is the concept of utilizing design thinking within your team. So they call it a Design Studio. You'll see some examples of that in some of the videos I have up during the upcoming weeks.
All right, thanks.
So that's all I got to say. So again, just think this through. You know what your team's got to do in the beginning. Start looking at that material. As you get into it, you'll probably have some questions, which is fine. Just email me. You got my email. You also have my telephone number. Give me a buzz. Does not matter. If you want me periodically to come in, talk to your team, let me know. Now, the question, oh, good, I've just thought about this. Do you want me to collaborate rooms, team rooms, for your teams to be able to meet? Or do you want to create your own rooms? Let me put it this way. I'm going to create 3 collaborative team rooms that your team will have access to. So you'll see those by tomorrow. Okay? And then at any time you might want me to come in because you got questions, just email me if I'm available. I will drop in. Okay? All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording.